The number on the scale hadn't moved in months, not up, not down, exactly where it had always been. But Catherine's legs told a different story, and for almost 2 years, every doctor she saw looked at that number on the scale and missed the story her legs were trying to tell. I want you to think about something most people never separate in their minds: your weight and where your body carries it. Most of us think of weight gain as something distributed, something general, a few pounds here, a slightly tighter waistband there. But what if the scale stayed exactly the same? What if your face looked the same, your arms, your waist? Your clothing fit exactly as it always had, and the only thing that changed was your legs? Heavier, fuller, different in a way you couldn't explain even to yourself. Here is the question that nobody asked Catherine for almost 2 years. What if those 12 pounds weren't weight at all? What if they were fluid, trapped, accumulating, building pressure inside tissue that had no way to release it, not because of what Catherine ate, not because of her heart, not because of her kidneys, but because of a system inside her body that most people have never heard of, that most doctors don't check in a standard appointment, and that, when it fails quietly, can change the shape and the weight and the feel of your legs in ways that look exactly like ordinary weight gain. This is Catherine's story, and it may be more familiar than you expect. Catherine is 64 years old and lives in Georgia. She retired 2 years ago from 31 years in school administration, glad to stop, having earned the rest. The changes in her legs started about 18 months after retirement. So gradually, she couldn't name a beginning, just a slow accumulation of difference that one day became undeniable. Her ankles were fuller. Her calves felt heavier, denser, almost spongy in a way that was difficult to describe. Her shoes, the ones she'd worn for years, stopped fitting comfortably by early afternoon. She weighed herself, unchanged. She weighed herself again a week later, still unchanged. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror and looked at her face, her waist, her arms. Nothing had shifted. But her legs looked different, felt different, were different in a way the scale simply refused to confirm. She went to her doctor. He checked her heart, normal. He checked her kidneys, normal. He adjusted her blood pressure medication slightly and told her to reduce her salt intake. She reduced her salt intake. The legs stayed the same. She went back. Blood work, everything in range. He suggested she walk more. She was already walking. He mentioned that some fluid retention was normal at her age, that her heart was fine, and that she shouldn't worry. Catherine went home and sat in her kitchen and looked at her legs and worried anyway. Not out of anxiety, but out of the specific, quiet certainty of someone who knows her own body well enough to know that something is wrong, even when every piece of paper insists otherwise. She was right. And for almost 2 years, nobody looked for the right thing. Here is what was happening inside Catherine's legs, and this is the part that changes everything, because most people have never heard it explained. Your body has 2 circulatory systems, not one. The first is the one everyone knows, the cardiovascular system, heart and blood vessels, carrying oxygen-rich blood through the arteries and returning it through the veins. The second is the lymphatic system, a parallel network of vessels running alongside the blood vessels, collecting the excess fluid that leaks from blood vessels into surrounding tissue, filtering it, and returning it to circulation. The lymphatic system has no pump, no heart driving it forward. It moves through muscle contractions, breathing, and the gentle pressure of body movement. When it works, you never notice it, because it removes fluid faster than it accumulates. When it fails or slows, fluid begins to accumulate in the tissue it was supposed to clear. This is called lymphedema, and it is one of the most commonly misdiagnosed conditions in adults over 60. Stop, because this matters. Lymphedema does not show up in standard blood work. It does not affect heart function tests. It does not change kidney markers. It presents as legs that look and feel heavier, progressively, persistently, in a body where every other number is normal. And here is the detail most doctors overlook. Lymphedema in older adults is frequently triggered not by surgery or cancer treatment, but by the gradual decline of lymphatic vessel function that accompanies aging, prolonged inactivity, and low-grade chronic inflammation. A 2020 review published in the Journal of Lymphology found that primary lymphatic insufficiency in adults over 60 is significantly underdiagnosed, with most patients receiving a correct diagnosis an average of 2.7 years after first reporting symptoms. 2.7 years of normal test results. Catherine had been in that gap for almost 2 of those years when everything finally changed. It was a physical therapist, not a doctor, who finally asked the right question. Catherine had been referred for knee pain unrelated to her legs, and during the intake assessment, the physical therapist looked at her lower legs and asked something no one had asked before. "How long have your legs looked like this?" Catherine told her, "Almost 2 years. Normal heart, normal kidneys, reduced salt, still the same." The physical therapist was quiet for a moment, then said, "Has anyone ever mentioned your lymphatic system?" Catherine looked at her. "My lymphatic system? The fluid in your legs, the way they look, the way you describe them feeling. That's not cardiovascular. That's lymphatic." And the two are completely different conversations. She referred Catherine to a specialist in lymphatic disorders. The diagnosis, primary lymphatic insufficiency, bilateral, moderate stage, came back within the week. Not her heart, not her diet, not her kidneys. A system so parallel and so invisible that 2 years of standard medicine had looked right past it. The specialist said something Catherine wrote down in the Notes app on her phone. The lymphatic system is the body's drainage system. When it slows down, the tissue fills. Not with fat, not with anything you ate, with fluid that has nowhere to go. And the good news is, it responds very well to the right approach. The right approach. 2 years of the wrong questions, and finally, the right approach. 4 specific interventions targeting the lymphatic system directly, not the cardiovascular system, not the diet, not the kidneys. The right system, finally. The first was manual lymphatic drainage, performed initially by a certified therapist, then adapted as a self-massage technique Catherine could do at home. Gentle, rhythmic strokes moving from the ankle toward the knee and from the knee toward the groin, following the direction of lymphatic flow, encouraging accumulated fluid to move toward the lymph nodes. 15 minutes each morning before getting dressed, light pressure close to the skin. Catherine described it as the first thing in 2 years that visibly changed the shape of her legs within a single session. The second was compression, worn correctly and consistently. Medical-grade compression garments specifically designed for lymphedema, different from standard circulation stockings, applied external pressure that replicated what the lymphatic vessels could no longer provide internally. Worn from morning to evening, removed before sleep. Within the first week, the afternoon fullness in Catherine's ankles had reduced by what she described as the most noticeable change I'd felt in 2 years. The third was movement, but specific, targeted movement. Diaphragmatic breathing, deep belly breathing. 10 slow breaths every hour creates pressure changes in the chest cavity that directly stimulate lymphatic flow. Combined with ankle pumps, 30 repetitions every 45 minutes while seated. This created a consistent mechanical stimulus for lymphatic movement that required no equipment and no special time. The fourth was anti-inflammatory nutrition, sustained and consistent. Chronic inflammation thickens lymphatic fluid and reduces lymphatic vessel contractility. Catherine eliminated processed foods and refined sugar, increased omega-3 intake through walnuts and ground flaxseed, and added turmeric with black pepper daily, not to lose weight, but to reduce the systemic inflammation making her lymphatic fluid harder to move. 8 weeks. 4 interventions. By week 4, Catherine's shoes fit through the afternoon for the first time in 18 months. By week 8, her legs had lost 8 of the 12 pounds, not through diet, not through calorie burning, but through a body finally draining what it had been accumulating for 2 years. She stepped on the scale and watched the number change and understood, finally, that the number had never been the right measurement. 4 things starting today. Manual lymphatic self-massage, 15 minutes each morning before dressing. Gentle strokes from ankle to knee, knee to groin, following lymphatic flow direction. Light pressure, not deep. Consistent, not occasional. Compression garments. Ask your doctor specifically about lymphedema grade compression, not standard circulation support. The distinction matters. Worn from morning until evening, every day. Diaphragmatic breathing. 10 slow, deep belly breaths every hour, combined with 30 ankle pumps every 45 minutes while seated. 2 minutes of your time. Consistent mechanical stimulus for lymphatic movement. Anti-inflammatory nutrition. Eliminate refined sugar and processed foods. Add omega-3 daily through walnuts or flaxseed. Add turmeric with black pepper. Reduce the inflammation that thickens lymphatic fluid and slows the system designed to keep your legs clear. Catherine told me something about the morning her shoes fit again. She said, "I stood at the door putting my shoes on, and they went on the way they used to, just normally, without the adjustment, without the moment where I decide whether I can make it through the afternoon." And I stood there for a second and thought, I spent 2 years being told everything was fine. And the whole time, my legs were asking for something that nobody was looking for. Something nobody was looking for, that is the sentence that stays with me. Not because the system failed Catherine, but because it reveals something important about the way we've been taught to understand our own bodies. We trust the numbers that get measured, and we dismiss what doesn't show up on paper. We believe the scale more than we believe our legs. Catherine's legs were never lying. They were carrying something real, something that had accumulated over 2 years, that had changed the shape and weight and feel of her body in ways no test had been designed to find. And when someone finally looked at the right system and asked the right question, the answer had been there all along. If this story felt like something you've been carrying, the legs that changed without explanation, the scale that wouldn't move, the doctors who found nothing, and the body that kept insisting otherwise, don't scroll away. Leave a comment, 2 or 3 words. Tell me what doesn't add up about your legs. Because someone will read those words today who has been living with this same quiet contradiction. And your words might be the moment they finally ask the right question. Hit the like button if Catherine's story reached you. And subscribe to Strong Legs. Independent Life every Tuesday and Saturday at 11 a.m. Because the right question changes everything, and it's never too late to ask it. Keep smiling, keep moving, and never forget you've got this.